I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, so maybe one day I can apply. Listen, I was really thrilled to be a part of this particular luncheon today. I know I've been on panels before where we've talked about weather and how it wreaks havoc on everybody's lives, like this weather did this morning. Very, very cold. But I wanted to be here because of all the scholarship recipients that were going to be here, because it's encouraging to me to see all these fresh faces out there and everybody who's just beginning their careers. I hope to purchase one of those fresh faces for myself very soon. But maybe not yet. For those of you who don't know, I am currently employed at Fox 29, WTXF TV, as part, thank you, as part of the morning show called Good Day Philadelphia. And the part that I am so grateful to be able to say right now is that I am now in my 17th year of doing weather on Good Day Philadelphia, which, as we all know, is about 100 years in broadcasting years. So, and I did stuff before I got here, like starting in radio when I was still a freshman in college. And I went to Towson University in Maryland. Baltimore is my hometown, so that's where I went to school for communications. And I was very fortunate to get a part-time job on the radio when I was still in school. And it was a very lucky break for me, and everyone else who worked at the school radio station was like, her? But I was glad for the opportunity. I took it, I ran with it, and I said, well, this is really fun. I think I'll do this until I don't like it anymore. And I'm still kind of doing it because even though the hours stink and it's a really crazy business, and I've been fired 3 times, and you know, and I've been demoted, promoted, salary cut, and all kinds of crap has happened. I still love the work, and I still want to do it for as long as they will let me. So gratitude. Yeah, right, thank you. He promised to heckle me during his speech today. So yeah, what's amazing to me though, for all of you who are in college, we get a lot of interns at Fox 29 who come and they apply for their internship. They're gonna get college credit for working at Fox 29. And they find out what time our morning show starts. 4. And they find out what time they're gonna have to get there to be an intern for us. And they're like, well, I don't wanna get up that early. And of course, we're like, well, do you want to do this for a living? Because the hours are always going to stink one way or the other. You're either going to have to work early in the morning or late at night. You'll probably have to work weekends. You will have to work holidays at some point, and your birthday, and everything else. And you just sort of make your life around that. And I always tell the interns that if you still love the work and can put up with all the crap, then this is what you should be doing for a living. And if you can't, and you can't take it, well, there's lots of other things to do, but it's working hard and loving what you do. And I'm grateful that I've been able to do it for this long. And I remember when I was working in Baltimore, I had a boyfriend who lived in Philadelphia. And so I used to come and visit him and listen to the radio when I was in Philadelphia and thinking, wow, if I could just get on the radio in Philadelphia, I wonder how I do that. And I'm not even sure at this point how I did it, but I did it. I got to Wilmington, Delaware, and everybody in Baltimore said, what are you, nuts? You're going down in market size. I said, but it's closer, and I got a job at WSTW in Wilmington. And then one day I got a letter from Dean Tyler, who is a broadcast pioneer, Hall of Famer, who said he heard me on the radio and did I want to come and talk about a job at his station, which was WMGK. A different format at the time. And suddenly, there I was on the radio in Philadelphia. And I did a lot of things, you know, to help myself in between. But I just think that the only reason I tell that story is because I knew that's what I wanted to do, boyfriend or no boyfriend. And that's not the guy who ended up becoming my husband. And I'd always say, don't move just for the guy, move for the opportunity that would be there without the guy. But I tell that story because when I look back, I'm not even sure how I did it. I just know that's what I wanted. So when you set your mind to something and you know you want it and you want it passionately, you will find a way to get it done. You'll have to work your butt off and work crappy hours and all the stuff I just told you about, but I think it can be done. And again, I'm grateful to be where I am now. And even though I got up at 1:30 this morning to do it, interns, remember that too. I'm really looking forward, though, to hearing from the other people who are going to be speaking today, and I'm very proud and happy to introduce them. So the other reason I brought up WMGK is because they have now changed format, and since 2002, their morning man was one of the people I listened to on the radio when I said, gosh, I want to be on the radio in Philadelphia. Just like John DeBella. Let's hear it.
I'm truly glad that Sue was so cheery because I am going to be butt ugly. I got to tell you, it is just going to, come on, laptop, come on, computer, do what you got to do. Damn you piece of crap. Damn you, Steve Jobs and your goddamn electronics. Okay. Hi. I'm glad Sue was that cheery, and I did not know about the WMGK thing, and it is nice to know that there is someone who has crappier hours than me. All right, 1:30, right? I was impressing the people at my table at 3:30. It was like, yeah, well, that's it. Well, that's it. This is as good as I get. But thank you for the introduction. Thank you for listening. I appreciate that. I have two of the recipients sitting at my table. Actually, I'm sitting at theirs because I got here late. Grace and Sarah, who told me that they've heard a number of speeches over time about what it's like to be in broadcasting and how everybody paints it so dark and so ugly. And I told them that's exactly what I'm going to do. Right? Because, like Jerry says, contrary to popular belief, NBC is not firing Brian Williams for you, right? Right? Channel 6 is not getting rid of Matt O'Donnell, right? Right? As a matter of fact, and this is, and believe me, there's a reason why I'm telling you this now. You are getting absolutely nowhere. There is nowhere you're going to get. You're going to be stopped at every turn. I know that's terrible. How could he say that to these young people trying to make it? Because that's what this industry is like. It is going to throw up walls. It is going to make you just wonder, why in God's name am I getting into this? Because they don't care about you, your plans, or your career. The only one who does is you. And if you want to be in this business, you've got to stay focused and stay on top of it. And like she did, right? Move on up, take your movements slowly, maybe get them a little faster as time goes along. Maybe you get that lucky phone call, maybe you won't. But you're going to be stopped everywhere, and it's your tenacity that is going to put you in the broadcasting business. And the one thing about the broadcasting business is that no matter how good you are, no matter where it is you work, right? The broadcasting business, whether it's radio or television, somewhere along the line is gonna screw you big time. Let me give you an example. I'm pretty sure that I am the only person in radio who can say this. It is possible someone in television could say this as well, but I am the only person I know of in radio who has been fired for high ratings. Now imagine this, right? I'm working at a radio station, and they have it's the 70s, and all FM disc jockeys talk like this. And they have a guy on in the morning, Larry Kleinman, who is like, he is Mr. Voice. That is really his act, right? His whole thing is he has this incredible voice. The show is just a morning FM radio show. He's playing music, talking about these bands, but he has this incredible voice. And he is the star of the radio station. And Larry goes on a 2-week vacation, and they ask me to fill in. And in the course of the time that I fill in, we get really, really good ratings. So they put me on the weekends, and my weekend numbers on Saturday and Sunday are higher than any of his weekday numbers. So they come to me and they say, what are you doing on the weekends? That is, as I'm just going in doing my show, you run the place, you can hear me just like anybody else. Well, you can't be following the format. Well, how could I not be following the format? You haven't said anything, but, well, it's impossible for you to beat Larry Kleinman. Larry is our star. So whatever you're doing, you've got to be doing something different, right? So we can't allow that. We're pulling you off the air. So I'm sitting there going, well, hold on a second. Let me get this straight. I'm getting pulled off the air because I have higher ratings than the guy you have on in the morning. And they said, yes. I said, maybe the thing that I'm doing that he is doing is, well, he sucks and I don't. Well, they pulled me off the air, and I became the production manager of the radio station, which actually was the best thing that they could have done for me, because in that time, because in every dark cloud there's that silver lining, right? And in that time, I really honed myself as a producer. So when it came time, the opportunity opened up at a radio station in Pittsburgh, where the sky is brown and yellow, and the plants are as smart as the people. It's not the edge of the universe, but you can see it from there. I got this call from somebody who said to me, he said, we want you to be our morning man. And I said, how in God's name? I had been off the air as a disc jockey for the better part of 18 months, close to 2 years. And I said to him, well, why would you know that? And he says, look, if you could do 10% of what you do in a production studio live, he says, you could be one of the best morning men this country has ever seen, which I kind of think I may have accomplished. So, with that said, all right, that's the kind of crap the industry throws at you. So here's my advice. And parents, for those of you who are parents of our scholarship winners here today, you're going to hate some of this, right? First, right, some of you are probably interning already, right? Intern as long as you can. Right? Until somebody's willing to pay you, you keep working for free. Do that, because you are going to find out things at a radio station, at a television station, that you are never going to find out outside of that location. So be there as much as you want, and be there as much as you can be. I got kicked out of my first radio station because I would stay there all night, because there might be the remote possibility they'd find something for me to do. Right? Oh yeah, the general manager came in one morning, found me sleeping on the floor. He goes, what are you doing? I said, well, somebody might need help. Not at 4 a.m, go home. Right? The other thing is, well, if you're working for free, you're probably gonna have to live at home again. It's the part your parents hate. Right? But suck it up, because you're not gonna really be spending that much time there. Because if what you want to do is be in broadcasting, you're going to be there as much as you possibly can be. You're going to just fall in love with it, and you've got to stay in love with it, because that is what is going to keep you going. That is what is going to keep you in this business. I was really, really lucky that early in my career, and when I was going to college, there really was no communications department. We had a radio station and the theater department. And my degree is actually in theater. I have a BFA in scenic lighting and costume design. Yes, I am a man who can sew. But during the course of the time that I was in college, I went to school in New York, and we had the opportunity, because of instructors that we had, we actually managed to meet a lot of famous people. And I got to meet George C. Scott before he got really cranky. And we were talking to him about acting and being in the business, and this is what I'm going to leave you with, because this is the best advice I ever got about this business, or actually, it's about any business. It's about anything that you want to do. There are two types of people in this world: people who want to do something, and people who have to do something. People who want to do something give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, they move on to accounting or something. Right? People who have to do something cannot be stopped. And it doesn't matter what the salary is or where it is that you're working, right? All that matters is that you're doing the work that you want to do. So if you want to be in this business, you will be in this business. Thank you very much.
What he said. The great part about the speaking panel today is that you're going to hear from people who are on the air, and you're going to hear from people who are in sales. And you might as well know right now, if you want to make money in this business, don't go on the air. Go into sales. I also learned that way too late. And then, of course, management, the people who are going to put you where you want to be, the people who are hire you. But our next speaker is somebody that should inspire all of us, because as a recipient of the Broadcast Pioneers Scholarship in 2005, he was able to forge a career for himself, which took him back to his hometown via Las Vegas. Do we mention that you're probably going to have to move away from home at some point to pursue this love of your career that we've been talking about, and that we will continue to try to discourage you from doing? So by way of Las Vegas, Nevada, he is now back as a graduate of LaSalle University in his hometown, sort of, because he grew up in New Jersey. From NBC 10, please welcome Matt DeLucia.
Well, hello, everyone. This afternoon, when I walked in the door here, someone asked me if I was one of the scholarship recipients for this year. So at least I had that college-age look about me, so I'll take that as a compliment. But it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces here, a lot of people who were here 9 years ago when I was receiving this scholarship from these fine folks, and so I'm very humbled and honored to be back in your presence once again. How I got my start, every person has a different story. I started while I was in college. I went to LaSalle University. I was studying communication and knew they had a television station there. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try this thing. And so I did what everyone here has been professing. It's just you have to live this thing. So I would write, direct, produce, edit, shoot, anchor, report, you name it, I did it, and I would stay there, and sometimes until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, until security would come into the communication center and kick me out. So I spent many hours doing that, and because of that, I was recognized by a producer at the former New Jersey network, and he wanted me to come in and audition for a weekly workforce program. It's focused on New Jersey's labor and workforce that was going on out there. And so I did that, and it was part of an apprenticeship, and that was really the opportunity that got me into broadcasting. I was able to work professionally while I was still a college student, and that was a tremendous honor. And after graduation, I went to Salisbury, Maryland. We talk about how we have to go from one place to another. So I went to Salisbury, Maryland, to Springfield, Massachusetts, to Las Vegas, and then back here. And most of the time you'll hear people say, well, you have to work your way up. You'll be in a small market far away, and eventually you'll work closer and closer back home. But I took a different path. I was going from one place and then going farther and farther away until finally I was in Las Vegas. I realized, you know what? I need to come back home. The Wild West is fun, but I love Philadelphia, and this is where I wanted to be. And it's quite poignant to be standing here right now on this day, because it was exactly 1 year ago today that I got the call with the offer to come work at NBC 10. So just to be here right now and seeing all the faces here of the college students and scholarship winners, and just knowing that when I was sitting where you were 9 years ago, I would have never imagined that I'd be here right now, because I had thought it would take 10, 15, 20 years of just constant hard work to get to where I wanted to be, and this really was my dream. And the inspiration to achieve those goals early on really came in part from the generosity of everyone here with that scholarship, because I was able to feel like I was being recognized for my efforts. And to get that scholarship, it just pushed me on that path to keep working hard and knowing that, the only person who can hold you back is yourself. And so I just kept pushing through, and there are a lot of bad days in this business. You're not going to cover all fun stories, whether in radio or TV or web or whatever you want to do, but you do get a sense of enjoyment, and you feel like it's rewarding at certain points. And exactly what Sue was saying, she would wake up early in the morning, and I interned at Fox 29 back in 2007. I did the night crew. I was not waking up that early, and now I feel like I'm paying for it because now I work a lot of morning shifts, and so now I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and so I have to pay my dues, as they say. But I grew up in Cherry Hill, and so people from Pennsylvania, please don't hold it against me that I'm from New Jersey. But every day before I would go to school, I would watch the news. I would come home and watch the news. And then before I went to bed, I would watch the news. I was a news junkie before I even knew what that term was. And so I just had a love for it. And I couldn't be happier doing what I'm doing right now. And just seeing all of the people as they came up here, all the scholarship winners talking about their goals, their inspiration, their dreams, you just can never give up, because you will have to work hard. You will have to work those holidays, the weekends, the mornings, you name it. I mean, I was working Thanksgiving. I was working Christmas. You rarely do get to see your family, even though I'm 30 minutes away from them. So you just have to keep working very, very hard. And I was able to learn firsthand how much hard work goes into this through the events of the Broadcast Pioneers. I would always go to the symposiums that were held. It seems like it was always at Channel 6, but, hey, we need to get some love at Channel 10. Come on now. But there you go. See? All right, thank you. There we go. So I was able to learn not just the on-air side of it, but what goes on behind the scenes. And really, I just want to point out all the changes that have happened. I know all of you can sit here and talk about the days of film and, even beta tapes and all sorts of things like that. But when I graduated in 2007, I had to send out demo tapes, like most of you are probably working on right now. I was sending them out on VHS, one at a time, dubbing VHS, and do any of you even know what VHS is anymore? I was at Temple a couple weeks ago, and I saw very few hands of people of college age who even know what VHS is anymore. And now you can just put a YouTube link and email it out, and that's how you can get the job, or even build your own website. So that has changed. And HD was just coming into popularity. Now it's the norm, and so now I need to wear a lot more makeup than I did back then. Yes, we all wear makeup, sorry. Even the guys. Sorry to break it to you. But the thing that I want to point out is that there's always somebody who's going to be hungry for the job. And if that person is you, then you can succeed, as long as you are working constantly and working towards your goal and your dream. You may even have to work several years to get that, but in the end, it will be a great achievement, and you will know that it's an achievement. And this scholarship really is the first step in your success. There is nothing more rewarding than making a difference in someone else's life. And since I sat in this room as a college sophomore, I've done stories that call attention to injustice, created change, and most of all, just give people a little glimpse into what's going on in the world around them. And we work for the viewers and the listeners, and we really just cannot forget that. It may seem glamorous on TV, but it is a lot of work. And I still get people to this day who come up to me on the street and say, well, where's your teleprompter? They think that I come to work and that someone else is writing my stuff, and I just look pretty on TV for 2 minutes and go home. But it's a lot more than that. And the inspiration for what I do every day goes back to what I told you before, of me watching the Philly broadcasters, all the legends that I see in this room today. And you all are the inspiration and the reason, really, why I'm standing here today. And it is proof that you folks can make a difference, and I hope it serves as inspiration to all of you college students that you can make a difference as well. And just to wrap it up, I hope 9 years from now, I will see one of you up here speaking, and I can sit out there and enjoy it, and hopefully you will all have very successful careers. Thanks so much.
So you made your audition tape in 2007. Mr. Marconi helped me with my audition tape. Wow. As I mentioned before, we're going to hear from all aspects of the business today. So hopefully all of the advice you're going to hear and all the great stories of the journey of how you got to where you are will be inspirational to you. Our next speaker has been for the past 17 years the Vice President and General Manager of WBEB, which is located right down the street here in Bala Cynwyd, until recently known as B101. Now it is More FM, and it is owned by broadcast pioneer Jerry Lee, who is here today. Yes, legend. Please welcome Mr. Blaze Howard.
John, I grew up in Pittsburgh. And you're right. Welcome. Congratulations to the scholarship winners. Congratulations to the parents. My two children, my daughter just got out of school 3 years ago, and I know what it is, that burden to pay for school. Congratulations to you all, the table I'm sitting at with, the LaSalle Explorers. Great kids over there, and I'm sure the rest of you are the same. They asked me to talk a little bit about how I got here, my trip. Mine's a little unusual for me, but I'm going to just talk off and give you a little bit of advice as I go along. The first bit of advice that I got was from my father. He was a plumber, a pretty good plumber. I'm not too bad around the bathroom and places like that, too. I can do a lot of the work. I can still solder and weld. But we went out to the VFW. The day before I took my first job, had a shot and a beer. That's a Pittsburgh mixed drink, by the way. Called it an imp and an iron. Shot of Imperial whiskey and a 15-cent glass of Iron City beer. I'm still alive today. He said something to me that I want you guys to think about, and I'm going to bring it back at the end. He said, I'll give you some advice. I said, what is it, Dad? He said, show up on time and try to do something smart to move your company forward every day. And I'm sitting in the VFW with him. I looked at him. I said, Dad, I love you. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Everybody does that. And he looked at me. I'll never forget this. God rest his soul. He looked at me, pointed at me, said, you'll see, smart ass. Just like that. I graduated from college with a degree in communications and advertising. I got really lucky my senior year. I got an internship at U.S. Steel Corporation. Those are the ones that made the sky kind of yellow in Pittsburgh. Shirts were always dirty. In their advertising department, and it was very interesting. It was an 8-week program my senior year from December 13th to February 7th. You asked me why I remember that? Because it was really important in my life. The second day I was there, they called me college boy. I think I was the first one they've ever had. They said, come on, you're going to work on a program. You have to come up with some ideas for an advertising campaign for U.S. Steel. Sat in a room. Long story short, I came up with an idea they liked. 2 days later, their agency came in and said, we're going to execute this idea. Here's the kid who had the idea. You work with him, and I work with that agency. Now, the next 7 weeks, I worked with the agency along with the U.S. Steel and the big building, all the big suits, and they did the program. And when I was getting ready to leave to go back to college for my last semester of my senior year, the advertising agency offered me a job as an account executive. That's what I wanted to do. Broadcasting was not on my radar in college. I thought I was going to go out and work at an agency. I realized soon I didn't have a real good creative bone in my body. Sometimes I got a good idea. So they hired me, gave me a letter. I started with them the second week after I got out of school. I went back to school. Fortunately, I only had 12 credit hours to take. I had a ball the last few months of college for myself. I learned a lot about the advertising agency business, although it was more industrial, as they called it back then. It wasn't retail or anything very sexy like that. But I learned a lot about the biggest thing that they do is they retain clients and they get new clients. You sell ideas inside, you sell ideas outside. And after about 6 months, 7 months of being there, I realized that we were pretty much all in the sales business. That's exactly what that was. It's glamorous, it's kind of sexy. You get to wear a t-shirt to work and blue jeans. It's a lot nice. You look a lot like John, the people that work there. Just like that, very comfortable. At the time, the girl I was engaged to, her younger sister worked at a radio station. And I was talking to her and telling her how much I liked my job and what I was doing. And she said, she was a controller of the radio station. And she said to me, you'd probably really be good at sales. And I said, well, I never even thought about it. She says, well, you ought to think about it. I said, I really like what I'm doing. I said, can you make any money doing that? And then she told me. I said, could you get me an interview? Because I had college loans, like probably a lot of you had. I was at home. I didn't have a car. I'm thinking, God, I went to school for 4 years. I got all these loans. I need to make some money. So I got an interview about a week later with the general manager and the general sales manager, and they offered me a job. And I took that job. And I took my father's advice. I showed up on time, and I tried to do something smart every day. And I realized at that time that he was right. There was a lot of people that just showed up, but they didn't try to do something smart. They waited for somebody to tell them what to do. I guess I had the initiative in that part, and the rest is kind of history for me. I moved up into sales management. I got promoted. I left Pittsburgh. I went to Richmond, Virginia, and I went back to Pittsburgh. Interesting thing, I'm the only person in the United States of America that's worked for all 3 radio stations east of the Mississippi that begins with a K. And if anybody can tell me who those 3 stations are besides John. KQV, Pittsburgh. I'm the only one. If there's ever a trivia question, it's me. I worked here at KYW. I worked at KDKA, the first radio station in America. I spent some time in San Francisco. Yes, I came back from San Francisco. Yes, I was out there. I loved it. I came back to work for this gentleman over here, Jerry Lee, and I worked for one of the most successful radio stations in America, the most listened to radio station in Philadelphia since 2007. And it's all because of his brilliant leadership and vision. Philadelphia is full of great radio stations. It wasn't until I left here, and I've spent 25 years in Philadelphia with KYW and with Jerry at More FM, WBEB. And when I left Philadelphia and was in San Francisco, it was amazing how many people wanted to talk about this market and the radio stations, and a guy back over there named John DeBella. When I got to Philadelphia my first time, it was 1987. He rolled the roost. This guy was one of the most successful radio personalities in the country. And so many years later, he still is one of the best in the business. Nice job. About 75% of all senior management in radio stations, and I think even in TV stations, comes from the sales side. And I think one of the reasons for that is you really have to become a jack of all trades. You really have to understand the programming side of a radio station or a TV station. You need to understand the business side of it. And yes, there is a business side. I had to make collection calls on some of our clients that wouldn't pay us. Fortunately, I'm half Italian. It came naturally. You have to understand technology. You have to understand the mission of the radio station. So when you step out as a salesperson, you are really the public relations agent for that radio station or TV station, and you represent it. And people that work for us, you better represent it damn well, or you don't work for us. It's real simple. So you got to show up on time and do something right every day. Another piece of advice, I think, Matt, you alluded to it earlier. Become a student of the industry. Become a student of trends. Read. I probably spend 3 to 5 hours a week just reading everything I can get my hands on, from Ad Week to Ad Age to the periodicals for radio, television. I read the Wall Street Journal. I read the Financial Times. I'm looking for trends. I read the Kiplinger Report. I try to find out as much as I can about the advertising industry so that I can help lead my company and the people that work for us in the right direction. I also encourage them to do it. You do not stop learning the day you graduate from college. That's the beginning. I didn't realize that. That's the real beginning for you. And then when you find people like Jerry Lee, who are true mentors, true good people that teach people, that's the kind of person you want to find. My experience in broadcasting has been great. My 2 kids are in it. My son works with you at Fox. Guess what he does? He's in sales. My daughter's in sales, but she works for an advertising agency. And it's interesting, I gave them both the same advice my dad gave me. And I waited for that day. And I said to my son, show up on time and try to do something smart, move your company forward every day. He said to me, Dad, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I said, okay, all right. My daughter graduated from college. I said the same thing to her. She has a little more charisma. She wasn't born in Pittsburgh. She came back to me probably about a year later, and she says, you want to know what? You're right. I've been promoted 3 times in a year because people just don't show up on time and don't try to do something smart. They wait for somebody to tell them what to do. So what I say to you all, do not wait. When you get out there, just do. Move. Keep on moving forward. Ask questions. Become a student of the industry, and you will be successful. Thanks.
And I just thought about another great piece of advice that I got, which was be a sponge and try to absorb as much as you can. And gosh, Blaze, you're right. If you stop learning, then you shouldn't be doing this anymore. And I find that I'm learning every day, and I'm really glad I came here today because I still am. Now, I need assistance because our next speaker has a very long title. And I'm looking forward to this one as well because I'm always interested to hear the experiences of women in our business in particular. Mostly because when I started, it was in the late 70s, and there weren't that many women doing what I started doing. In fact, in Baltimore, my first radio station was WMAR FM, and I was one of 2 women who were DJs on the air in Baltimore, in the whole city of Baltimore. All the other women who were on the air were doing news, and there weren't that many of them. So it's been really interesting to see how things have changed through the years. And now on Good Day Philadelphia, our show, we have more women on our staff than men. It's really changed a lot. And the next speaker will tell you about her journey as a woman in this business as well. She is the Vice President of Strategic Sales, Political and Issue Advocacy for Tribune Broadcasting. And her name is Kristen Long. Kristen?
So note to self, don't follow those 4 people whose idea was this. I'm going to read. Hi and good afternoon, and thank you for including me in this esteemed group today. Thank you, broadcast pioneers, for characterizing this event as a monster luncheon, and for thinking that a sales manager might even have something entertaining to say. So here we are for a spring, or not so springy, potpourri of broadcasting, and I've decided to see your potpourri and raise you a hodgepodge. As I scan the room, I see the age spectrum of broadcasting professionals, friends who are here to reflect on the history of Philadelphia radio and television, and students, new friends, who are just getting started in this wonderful and fabulous industry. I'm somewhere in the middle, though I'm clearly closer to the reflective end of my career. It's been a great 35-year ride, and I've had jobs from secretary at Benton and Bowles, took a typing test in 1979, yeah, not good, to senior vice president at Capital Cities, which became ABC, which became the Walt Disney Company. Currently, I'm the vice president of strategic sales, political and issue advocacy for Tribune Broadcasting, so we have 42 television stations, and it was my pleasure to hop the fence from PHL 17 to join you here today. Just last month, I was a guest of the Broadcast Pioneers of Philadelphia at Temple University on a speakers panel that focused on employment and career strategies. Not career paths, but career obstacle courses. Not career ladders, but career chutes and ladders. It's always fun and exciting to spend time with students who are just getting started on this broadcasting journey. And that night, I was especially impressed with the depth and breadth of friendship and connectedness that all of you broadcast pioneers enjoy with each other. It certainly got me thinking about the sources of inspiration that I've drawn on over the years to stay the course on the roller coaster that is broadcasting sales. High highs, low lows, leaning always on the strength of the work family and the team for whatever happens next. And always, always taking wisdom and guidance wherever and whenever it can be found to find ways to enjoy the ride. So here's where I find my inspiration: in obituaries and commencement speeches. Both milestones in the circle of life. Both pit stops that identify, here's what's really important. And of course, I'm not kidding. I love to read people's life stories, and I love to hear commencement speakers who have the daunting task of leaving nervous parents and anxious students with a roadmap of next steps. My gift to you today is a best of sampling, a potpourri of some obituaries and commencement speeches that share a Philadelphia theme. And I hope that you too find a pearl or a nugget of wisdom, or maybe even a laugh in some of these wise words. If you're on Facebook or on Twitter, you might have already read either of these two recent obituaries because they went viral. And the commencement speeches are a little bit older, but memorable just the same. So the first obituary comes from James Rebhorn, an actor best known for his role in Homeland, who passed away in March of melanoma. He was born in Philadelphia, and he wrote his own obituary. James Robert Rebhorn was born September 1st, 1948 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His mother, Ardell Frances Rebhorn, Nehawk, loved him very much and supported his dreams. She taught him the value of good manners and courtesy, and that hospitality is no small thing. His father, James Harry Rebhorn, was no less devoted to him, and from him Jim learned that there is no excuse for poor craftsmanship. A job well done rarely takes more or less time than a job poorly done. His children made him immensely proud. Their dedication to improving our species and making the world a better place gave him hope for the future. He hopes, however, that they will grieve his passing only as long as necessary. They have much good work to do, and they should get busy doing it. Jim was fortunate enough to earn his living doing what he loved. He was a professional actor. His unions were always there for him, and he will remain forever grateful for the benefits he gained as a result of the union's struggle. Without his exceptional teachers and the representation of the best agents in the business, he wouldn't have had much of a career. He was a lucky man in every way. James Rebhorn. The second obituary was self-penned by Walter George Bruhl, Jr., who died in March as well. He, too, was born in Philadelphia, so maybe this says something about Philadelphians as control freaks who need to have the last word on these things. So here's Walter George Buell, Jr. He drifted off his mortal coil on Sunday, March 9th in Punta Gorda, Florida. He was surrounded by his loving wife of 57 years, Helene Sellers Bruhl, who will now be able to purchase the mink coat, which he had always refused her because he believed that only minks should wear mink. There will be no viewing since his wife refuses to honor his request to have him standing in the corner of the room with a glass of Jack Daniels in his hand so that he would appear natural to visitors. Instead of flowers, Walt would hope that you would do unexpected and unsolicited acts of kindness for some poor, unfortunate soul in his name. This obituary has not only made people laugh, it's inspired a lot of people to do, in fact, something nice. So Walter Bruhl, Jr., with the help of his grandson, Sam, can proudly state, mission accomplished. I've got two commencement speeches here, and I'll read just parts of what the author Anna Quindlen said at Villanova in June of the year 2000. I have no specialized field of interest or expertise, which puts me at a disadvantage talking to you today. I'm a novelist. My work is human nature. Real life is all I know. Don't ever confuse the two, your life and your work. The second is only part of the first. Don't ever forget what a friend who once wrote Senator Paul Tsongas said when the senator decided not to run for re-election because he had been diagnosed with cancer. No man ever said on his deathbed, "I wish I had spent more time in the office." Don't ever forget the words my father sent me on a postcard last year. "If you win the rat race, you're still a rat." Or what John Lennon wrote before he was gunned down in the driveway of the Dakota, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." Get a life in which you are not alone. Find people you love and who love you. And remember that love is not leisure, it is work. Each time you look at your diploma, remember that you are still a student, still learning how to best treasure your connection to others. Pick up the phone, send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad, get a life in which you are generous. Anna Quinlan at Villanova. And finally, these inspirational words come from Neil Gaiman, an author of fiction and films who spoke at the University of the Arts in 2012. Looking back, I've had a remarkable ride. I'm not sure I can call it a career, because a career implies that I've had some kind of career plan, and I never did. The nearest thing I had was a list I made when I was 15 of everything I wanted to do: to write an adult novel, a children's book, a comic, a movie, record an audiobook, write an episode of Doctor Who, and so on. I didn't have a career, I just did the next thing on the list. Life is sometimes hard. Things go wrong. In life and in love and in business and in friendship and in health and in all the other ways that life can go wrong. And when things get tough, this is what you should do. Make good art. I'm serious. Husband runs off with a politician? Make good art. Leg crushed and then eaten by mutated boa constrictor? Make good art. IRS on your trail, make good art. Cat exploded, make good art. Somebody on the internet thinks that what you do is stupid or evil and it's all been done before, make good art. Probably things will work out somehow and eventually time will take the sting away, but that doesn't matter. Do only what you do best. Make good art, make it on the good days too. When I agreed to give this address, says he, I started trying to think of what the best advice I'd been given over the years was, and it came from Stephen King at the height of my success, and his advice was this: "This is really great, you should enjoy it." And I didn't. Best advice I got that I ignored. Instead, I worried about it. I worried about the next deadline, the next idea, the next story. There wasn't a moment for the next 14 or 15 years that I wasn't writing something in my head or wondering about it. And I didn't stop and look around and go, "This is really fun. I wish I'd enjoyed it more." It's been an amazing ride, but there were parts of the ride I missed because I was too worried about things going wrong, about what came next, to enjoy the bit that I was on. That was the hardest lesson for me, I think, to let go and enjoy the ride, because the ride takes you to some remarkable and unexpected places. Be wise, because the world needs more wisdom, and if you cannot be wise, pretend to be someone who is wise, and then just behave like they would. And now go and make interesting mistakes, make amazing mistakes, make glorious and fantastic mistakes, break rules, leave the world more interesting for your being here, make good art. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate the scholarship recipients. I paid off my last student loan when I was 35 years old. There are enough people that default that the bank actually sends you a thank you note when you do that. Congratulations and thank you to the sponsors and the donors. You're doing God's work by making this money available. And God bless the Philadelphia Broadcast Pioneers for keeping this organization going.
So it's time to wrap this thing up. I got to go home and start writing my obituary so I can have control. I want to thank Jerry for inviting me to be part of this day, and I hope that I will be seeing a lot of you up on this stage, those scholarship recipients, and I wish you a lot of luck in this career. Thank you very much for having me today. And here's Jerry one more time.
I wanted to say, by the way, opportunity sometimes strikes in unusual ways. We have Trudy Haynes here, who was the first African American on Philadelphia TV. She came here from Detroit. And a few months after being here in Philadelphia, one of our members, Al Primo, who created the eyewitness news format. Before then, the anchor just read the news. This was something totally different. But what you see today, Al created. Well, Al, Trudy, Vince Leonard, and a producer from the KYW-TV documentary department went out and interviewed Barry Goldwater 1 year after his election. The program won many awards. The documentary producer won many Emmys. His name is David Brenner, the comedian. David got his break because when KYW-TV came here, the Mike Douglas show moved from Cleveland to Philadelphia. They had the bright idea, let's do it live in Philadelphia. It was syndicated on tape everywhere else, but it was live here. Things happen. And there's a snowstorm. Shelley Berman, a well-known comedian, is coming down from New York. Bad weather. Shelley doesn't get here. The show is on the air. And they go to David and they say, you know, you're a funny guy. We need a comedian where Mike's gonna sing an extra song. Shelley had 10 minutes, but if he doesn't get here, you have 5 minutes on the Mike Douglas show. So he keeps saying, please God, make sure his train is late, right? So he can actually go on. Mike sings the next song, no Shelley Berman. David Brenner goes on the Mike Douglas show, and they put him back in the documentary department. So he goes to WNEW in New York, where there's a lot of comedy clubs, and the next thing you know, he's on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. But if that train wasn't late and there wasn't snow, maybe David would have been producing documentaries for the rest of his life. So you never know how fate is going to affect your career. Thank you all for coming.